We're dealing with some technical difficulties, but we are about to begin our program today. Before we begin, I have a few quick announcements. I would like to announce that this next Thursday, November 14th, Catherine Braun will be coming to talk about her new book, Mapping Conquest: The Maps of the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. And that is going to be a book talk in person here at the Archives in the Farley Auditorium, but you can also check it out here on our YouTube and Facebook pages. And then we have on Thursday, November 21st, our Food for Thought series will continue with Jamie Reeves as he presents The Symphonic Composers of Alabama, the works of William Dawson, Margaret Bonds, and others. And that is also going to be an in-person program in our Farley Auditorium, as well as on here online on Thursday, November 21st at noon. Lastly, I'd like to be able to invite you next month as Research Rundown will continue with Carly Ann Medley presenting on WPA township and range maps and church surveys, so things that will help you in your research. Now, without further ado, I'm excited to welcome our reference archivist, Kayla Gurner, and she is going to present to you on the War of 1812, our records, and how you can look for your ancestor. Welcome, Kayla.
Thank you, Alex. So good morning, everyone. We are so happy to have you with us today. Today's presentation will provide an overview of the types of records we have access to at ADAH regarding the War of 1812, along with details of what information these records may contain and how to search for them. Let's get started. First, let's look at this map from the American Battlefield Trust that shows what states had achieved statehood at the time the War of 1812 began. You will note that Alabama is not yet a state and was still considered part of the Mississippi Territory. Alabama did not become a state until December of 1819, which means that there are no War of 1812 service records for a state that did not yet exist. Men who eventually settled in Alabama served from other states such as Tennessee, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Louisiana. So what records do we have available at the archives? ADAH has a reel of microfilm War of 1812 service records from the National Archives. The reel is entitled U.S. War Department Adjutant General Carded Records, General John Locke's Division. This is not vaguely inclusive of all Alabama relative service, but it does give you a place to start. These records, along with additional materials, are also available on Fold 3. Our website is archives.alabama.gov. To search the catalog for physical materials that we have in our collections, you will hover over the Research tab at the top of the home page. Click on Catalog in the second column and do a keyword search for War of 1812 or any other descriptors that apply to your research. The Archives has few original records due to the War of 1812 taking place prior to 1819 statehood. The next resource we have is our digital collections. To visit the digital collections, you will go to our homepage at archives.alabama.gov. You will hover over the Research tab, then click the third item in the second column that says Digital Collections. You can see how this works in the inset picture in the bottom right-hand corner. You will also see that I have circled the search box in the top right-hand corner. This is the best way to search for War of 1812 materials that have been digitized, as it will catch all the types of records available. To search within each type of record, such as photographs or textual materials, you will click on the appropriate blue square corresponding to the collection you want to search. The James D. Craig scrapbook is an example of potentially useful materials that can be found in the digital collections. This scrapbook was kept by James D. Craig during his service in the War of 1812, where he served as captain of a Tennessee volunteer company in Jackson's army. The scrapbook contains letters, inventories, military orders, accounts, muster lists, ration lists, and more. The content mainly focuses on activity at Fort Claiborne and Mobile, but also provides a military service record during Jackson's campaigns on the Coosa River, the lower Alabama River, and the Mobile River. Book collections at ADAH include an assortment of primary and secondary sources for War of 1812 research. To see what books we have available, view our catalog at archives.alabama.gov. Our books and other collections do not circulate like a typical library, so anything in our collections can only be used while visiting us at the archives. Most original service records are at the National Archives. Why, you may ask? Federal military service records are the responsibility of the federal government. Therefore, they are housed in the National Archives just as our state records are housed in our state archives. Some exceptions to this for the War of 1812 are state militia records. For instance, if a regiment was sent into service by the state of Georgia and it wasn't federalized and joined as part of the United States forces, then service and other records may be available on the state level. Even if a regiment was eventually federalized, it may have begun its life as a state militia unit, so it's worth checking the state that the soldiers served from as well as the National Archives. Some of the NARA, National Archives and Records Administration's record groups, are available on Ancestry.com and Fold3. Roughly 83% of pension applications have been digitized and are on Fold3 at this time. Pension applications will be listed in the state or territory from which the veteran served. Fold3 is a military records website that requires a paid subscription if you wish to view it from home. We provide free access to this website here in our research room for patrons who wish to come in and use one of the many computers we have available. Here's a screenshot of Fold3's homepage. To search within a specific war's available records, you will click on the corresponding link, such as I have circled here for the War of 1812 United States. Once you have clicked on the War of 1812 link, you can click on Publications at the top of the page to view what record types are available. You can then scroll through the different collections, or you can search for specific record types using the search bar. This screen shows a few of the results for searching for service records. You will notice that there is not a collection for Alabama, as Alabama was, as I've said before, not a state. There is a collection for War of 1812 service records from Mississippi that might be useful and closer to home than some of the other available collections. To search within a collection, you will simply click on the collection's listing and use the search bar at the top of the page to search by name and/or location. Don't forget that names were often misspelled and initials were often used interchangeably with the name of the soldier in service records. Here I searched the War of 1812 Service Records Mississippi collection for the name John Smith and received 9 results. Clicking on one of the links leads me to this service record. It tells me the soldier's rank, the company he was with, when he enlisted, when the specific record was dated, and where it was taken, which is listed as being Mobile. Service record information can help you determine the path your ancestor took during the war, and comparing the information on each record can help you determine which of the 9 John Smiths is your ancestor. This next slide shows an example from War of 1812 pension collection on Fold3. This is specifically a widow's pension application or widow's brief. There are 76 pension entries linked to Alabama listed on Fold3 at this time. This document contains the soldier's name, Jordan Alexander, and the widow's name, Rebecca, along with his rank, private, and his captain's names. He served in the Alabama militia in the War of 1812 as a volunteer, and his receipt of a bounty land warrant is noted. A land claim number is listed. This pension was approved for $8 a month. The summary of proof is a continuation of the widow's brief. This document shows the date of Jordan and Rebecca's marriage, March 26, 1816, and also includes the maiden name of the widow, which is Rogers. It states that she had no previous marriages. It provides the date of Jordan's death, which was February 9th, 1868, and it gives names of associates or witnesses. Another type of document that pension applications can include are letters of affidavit. This letter contains witness testimony of Levi H. Hall and W.T. Owens before a clerk of the district court in Bowie County, Texas, that corroborates certain details of the pension application, such as the soldier's death, place of residence, and the marriage status of the widow. This particular letter notes the place of burial for Jordan Alexander is in his family graveyard at a place known as Sand Hill Church in Bowie County, Texas. Next in the application packet, we have a verification of service letter from the Treasury Department. This document includes the names of all captains he served under, as well as his dates of service with each. This last document has a title at the top that says War of 1812 Claim of Widow for Pension under the provisions of Section 4736 to 4740 and the Act of March 9, 1876. This document includes some information that has not already been mentioned in previous documents. It notes the age of the widow as being 83. It provides the location of bounty land warrant in the territory of Alabama near a stream called Buckatina, now known as the state of Alabama. It notes places of residence throughout their married life as being Marengo County, Alabama, Holmes County, Mississippi, Yellowbusha County, Mississippi, Lafayette County, Mississippi, and Bowie County, Texas. It also gives us an approximate year, 1855, for their move to Texas. Newspapers can include a wide variety of interesting information for all genealogy research, and in this case, for military service, it can include draft and enlistment notices, regiment service and history, battle accounts, articles regarding when troops leave and return, wounded, death notices, obituaries, desertions, executions, or arrests for illegal conduct. We offer free access to newspapers.com for patrons who visit the archives. Chronicling America is a free newspaper website that you can access from home, and they sometimes provide papers that are not available on newspapers.com. Chronicling America does have a downside in that it is less user-friendly and harder to search than newspapers.com. The example article that you see here is from the Democratic Clarion and Tennessee Gazette on November 10th, 1812, and it is a military report of activity that was taking place in the Northwestern Army. Another resource can be found in maps that show battle movements and key locations. Always consider the source. State, college, and federal archives will have more credible maps than, for instance, a blog that hasn't been updated since the 1990s. The American Battlefield Trust has fantastic maps of battles from various wars. You can also check out ADAH's map database and the ADAH digital collections for access to maps in our collections. Ancestry.com has a variety of records collections available for the War of 1812 period. Of particular interest will be the U.S. War of 1812 service records, U.S. War of 1812 pension application files index, and the U.S. War of 1812 papers. Ancestry has 51 total collections available regarding the War of 1812. To see a complete list of these, you can do a card catalog keyword search to find all War of 1812 related collections. Findagrave.com has some listings for War of 1812 soldiers who died during or after the war. Here is one example from Mr. Bryant Smith. He is noted to have died in Tallapoosa County on March 27, 1814, and was buried in the Fort Williams Military Memorial Park in Talladega County. This entry shows his tombstone along with a possible match for a service record index card and 7 possible family connections. FamilySearch.com is another free online resource for genealogical research. FamilySearch only has 3 War of 1812 collections. These collections are mostly comprised of index card records and contain the same information that can be found on Fold 3. Perhaps of more interest will be the fact that FamilySearch also has thousands of digitized books relating to the War of 1812, making your search for rare titles easier. For ancestors who served from states who were not listed on Fold 3, such as Tennessee, you will need to contact the National Archive to request their service records. The National Archives has some useful links at www.archives.gov/research/military/War of 1812. You can also fill out a document request by visiting www.archives.gov/forms. To order records from the National Archives, you will need to know the soldier's name and the regiment he served with. The Fold 3 Collection U.S. War of 1812 Service Record Index is a helpful tool for gathering possible unit names and identifying how soldiers may be listed in the records. To the right is an example of an index card for Jacob Aaron, who was a private in the 1st Regiment Hall's Tennessee Volunteers. In cases where men served, at least for a time, in the state militia, you can potentially request muster rolls and other military documents from the state archives corresponding to the state they served with. This is an example of a muster roll that I requested from the Tennessee State Library and Archives. These records are on microfilm, and they will warn you that the records they have are in poor condition, so you may or may not be able to read them. When available, muster rolls can include a soldier's rank, date of enlistment, and may note if they were killed in action, died of disease, or were absent without leave. This wraps up today's research rundown. We should have some time for a few questions before we go, but if you have questions at a later date, please feel free to reach out to me at kayla.scott@archives.alabama.gov. If you have any questions for us to discuss before we go, please put those in the comments now.
Thank you, Kayla.
You're welcome.
I really found it fascinating when you had that, and of course, if you have questions, please put them in here because that's why we are here. We want to hear your questions. But I had one that when you were showing the records from, I believe it was the National Archives, there was no lists of also, for Chickasaw Indian and Creek and so on and so forth. If someone knows that their ancestor fought in the Creek War, would they be able to find them also in these records? Because that would have been kind of like a subset of the War of 1812, right? Do you know if there's a different place they would look, or would they start maybe there at NARA?
They can check. So I would suggest starting with Fold 3 because in a lot of cases there are at least index records, and that's the annoying thing for you as a researcher is that you may find a record that you think probably goes to your ancestor, but it's only going to say John Smith, 1st Tennessee Regiment Volunteers. So you have to then take that record and then go to the National Archives. But you have better results with National Archives requests if you can at least tell them the full name that was being used and what regiment they were in. And if you've got that card, like I personally sent a copy of the card with it, and that way they had all the information I had. And unfortunately for my ancestor, who my mom had been researching for a very long time before I ever became interested, he only had like 3 or 4 records. But as far as the Creek Indian War, there is a separate subset of records on Fold 3 that is Indian Wars.
Okay.
So personally, I would look at both of them. I would look at the War of 1812 ones and the ones that say Indian Wars, because there is a lot of overlap and a lot of confusion as to what gets filed with what sometimes. So I would definitely look both places.
It might have been put in both. So it's always best to kind of like check out both of those ones. And then, like you said, start Fold 3 and then go from there.
Right.
Perfect. We do have a question on our Facebook page, and it says, Louisiana for Battle of New Orleans, are these patriots from Kentucky? I'm not sure.
So I know there were Tennessee soldiers at the Battle of New Orleans. You would be best served to look at probably even a secondary source on the Battle of New Orleans, because there, I would assume, would be listed like the different states. You know, if you just get a pretty basic book on the subject, it should list the different states that soldiers were from. But I do know, you know, Jackson was from Tennessee, and so he had a lot of Tennessee volunteers that were down there with him. As far as other states, I don't know offhand. That would be a good thing to look up.
We had a question specifically about our records here. Do you know if the state archives here in Alabama, do we have records on private military forts in the Creek War?
We have a little. So basically, it's going to be if a family member donated something. So you can always check the catalog. We might have a little something. We don't have all the fort records. We don't have, you know, a comprehensive collection of any of that. But if there was someone whose family member served, they may have a journal or diary or some letters that reflect on what that service was like.
So just a few things, and then they can find that all in our catalog.
Yes.
Online. So they could start there, and then you'll see if you can find something here. They can always make a research request if they need a little extra help.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kayla, for this wonderful presentation and letting us know a little bit more about how we can learn about the War of 1812. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope to see you again next month as we continue Research Rundown.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, everyone, for coming.